Morning does not return the same way it did before. There's a tenderness to it now, a gentleness in how the light touches your skin. It doesn't ask you to rush, it invites you to receive. You no longer see the day as something to conquer, but something to cherish. Not because it is guaranteed, but because it isn't. You open your eyes and everything feels like a first time. The sound of your feet on the floor, the smell of the air, the rustle of the curtains. These details, once ignored, now sing with meaning. You are no longer a visitor in your own life. You are awake. You are home. You touch old photographs. Some bring smiles, others sting. But you look at them without flinching. These were the moments that built you, even the ones that hurt. They weren't perfect, but they were real. And now, you understand being real was always more important than being flawless. You feel an urge to reach out, not just to those who are near, but to anyone whose heart might need a voice, a kind word, a soft reminder. You realize you don't need to change the world. Sometimes you only need to change someone's moment. And that, too, is holy. You go for a walk, not to burn calories or make steps count, but to listen, to feel. Each step is an act of worship, each breath a hymn. Nature greets you like an old friend, asking for nothing, offering everything. The trees don't hurry. The sky doesn't apologize. They simply are. And so are you. You look back at the things you once feared: failure, rejection, not being enough. And now they seem so small. Not because you overcame them, but because you outgrew them. You see now that courage was never the absence of fear, but the decision to keep moving anyway. Someone smiles at you and you receive it, not just with your eyes, but with your soul. That smile says, "You exist, and I see you." And you smile back, not to be polite, but because you mean it. You want them to feel the same truth. They matter. Just like you. You open a drawer and find something forgotten, a note, a keepsake, a piece of your past. You hold it, not to dwell, but to honor. You are not who you were when you placed it there, but you are still made of the same breath, the same dust, the same light, and you are still becoming. You sit in silence with someone. No words, just presence. You realize how rare that is. To be with someone without filling the space. No distractions. No performance. Just two souls breathing in the same time. And in that stillness, a deeper connection grows, one that words could never reach. You look at the sky one last time before sleep. You remember how the stars showed up for you, how grace whispered in the quiet, how the day became more than survival. It became sacred. You don't need to know what tomorrow holds. You only need to rest in the truth that today you truly lived like it was your last. There's something different about waking up with the awareness that this might be your final sunrise. The light filtering through the curtains doesn't feel like just another morning. It feels like a gift, not routine, not random, but sacred. Every breath you take feels heavier, like it's borrowed from a place beyond this world. And suddenly, the noise fades. The rush, the distractions, the pressure, they all dissolve into silence. You're left alone with time, and for the first time, you truly feel it. You walk to the mirror, and it stares back not just with reflection, but with truth. You're no longer seeing skin or wrinkles or tired eyes. You're seeing decisions, sacrifices, regrets, triumphs, all layered on a face that maybe, just maybe, you never fully learned to love. What have you done with all your yesterdays? What haven't you said? What haven't you forgiven? That face wants answers. And so does your soul. You step outside, and the world continues on. Cars pass. People stare at screens. Children laugh, without knowing how precious that laughter is. But you feel the weight of every smile, every breeze, every scent in the air. That old tree you pass each day without notice? Today, it's poetry. The sound of leaves brushing against each other is music. Suddenly, you see how much life you've been walking past without really living it. You think about the people you love, not vaguely, but vividly. Their voices echo in your memory, the ones who lifted you up, the ones you pushed away, the ones you never got to say goodbye to. And you wonder, what if today was the day you made peace? Not with them, but with the part of you that still holds on to the bitterness. Maybe it's time to stop rehearsing the conversation. Maybe it's time to have it. You sit down with a piece of paper. No one asked you to, but your heart does. It urges you to. Write what you always meant to do, the trip you never took, the apology you never gave, the promise to be more present. This is not a bucket list. This is your confession to yourself, a declaration that today you will not leave life on the table. You will eat every bite of it. Time suddenly feels like a living thing. It's not numbers on a screen anymore. It pulses. It stings. It breathes with you. And as you look at the ticking clock, you ask yourself, am I spending my hours or investing them? Because if they are all I have left, then nothing matters more than where I place them. You gather around the table with family, or maybe just a friend, maybe even alone. But this meal, it's different. You chew slower, you smile longer. You look into their eyes, even if just in memory. Every conversation feels like it holds eternity in it, because deep down, you know it might be the last one you get to have like this. And instead of sorrow, you feel sacredness. As the day stretches forward, memories you never created begin to haunt you. The birthdays missed, the vacations postponed, the conversations ended too soon. They aren't there to hurt you. They're there to remind you of what can still be created today. The past is out of reach, but the next 5 minutes aren't. You still hold the brush. The canvas isn't finished yet. You think about what you're leaving behind. Not money, not possessions, but traces of who you are. The sound of your laughter in someone's head. The way you made someone feel seen. The values you stood for. These are your true inheritance. And they don't live in your will. They live in the echoes of your kindness, in the stories people will whisper long after you're gone. And when night begins to fall, you feel something stir deep inside. A quiet knowing, a soft acceptance, not of death, but of life. Real life. The kind you touch with your soul, not your hands. You embrace the stillness. You breathe in the dark, not with fear but with gratitude, because today you lived. And that's more than most people can say. In the quiet after the day ends, something inside you begins again. A sense that maybe this isn't the end, but the start of a different way to live. Not by default, not by repetition, but by design. You start to feel the weight of your old self fall away, piece by piece. The fears that held you back no longer have the same power. They're just shadows now. And in their place grows a quiet strength. You trace the scars you carry, not just the ones on your body, but the invisible ones on your heart. Some were carved by loss, others by silence, some by your own choices. But today, they feel different. Not as wounds, but as witnesses. Evidence that you've felt, that you've tried, that you've lived. You no longer hate those marks. You honor them. You remember things you never said. Words you swallowed because of pride, fear, or distraction. And now, they rise like waves inside you. You want to speak them, not to impress or to win, but simply to be whole. You feel the urgency to tell someone they mattered, to say I'm sorry, to say I love you. Because silence, once comforting, now feels like betrayal. Your routines look different today. Brushing your teeth, tying your shoes, brewing coffee, mundane things become sacred acts. There's reverence in them, a sense that you are here, now, doing something that matters simply because it exists. You begin to see that holiness was never about rituals. It was about presence. You stand in front of a door you've always kept closed. Behind it is a truth you didn't want to face. Maybe it's a dream you gave up on, a part of you buried, pain you didn't want to revisit. But now, with time no longer guaranteed, you turn the handle, slowly, not to escape the past, but to redeem it. Because what you run from controls you, but what you face sets you free. You begin to notice your body differently. The aches you ignored, the tension you carried, the fatigue you pushed through, they speak now. They ask for kindness. And once you listen, you touch your chest and feel your heartbeat, not as background noise, but as the proof of life. A rhythm that has never stopped giving. Even when you weren't listening. As you walk through the hours, you see people you may never meet again. A stranger on a bench, a child skipping, an elder crossing the street. And suddenly, they matter. Their story matters. You feel something awaken in you, a quiet desire to leave a trace of love everywhere you go, even if it's just a smile, a held door, a moment of attention. You reach a window you never opened. Outside is a sky that always seemed ordinary, but not today. Today the clouds are alive, the light dances differently, and the air smells like something you forgot to appreciate. And in that moment, you realize the cage wasn't the window. It was your mind, and the lock was your hurry. You find a pen. You write a letter, maybe to no one in particular, maybe to yourself. You pour out truths you've carried for too long, not to be read, but to be released. With each word, you feel lighter, not because the past changed, but because you stopped, dragging it into your present. That paper becomes a grave for your shame and a garden for your peace. And as you close your eyes, even just for a moment, you feel something sacred settle over you. Not fear, not sorrow, but grace. You realize this day wasn't a countdown. It was a call to remember, to return, to rise. And even if tomorrow never comes, this day was enough. More than enough. Because today, you truly lived. There's a place within you that begins to whisper, what if every day held this kind of awareness? Not the looming thought of an ending, but the sacredness of the present. You begin to wonder how many years were spent living in someday. But someday never came. Only today ever truly existed. And now you see it clearly. You remember a moment from your childhood, blurry but warm. A time when you believed in wonder, when a puddle could be an ocean and a cardboard box a spaceship. And you realize you didn't lose that part of yourself. It just got buried under bills, deadlines, and disappointments. But it's still there, waiting, hoping you'll return. You feel the pull to kneel, or bow your head, or simply close your eyes. Not because someone told you to, but because your spirit is reaching beyond logic, beyond fear, into something eternal. You don't need words. The silence becomes your prayer. And in that stillness, something divine touches the core of who you are. You take a bite of something simple, a piece of bread, a sip of tea, and it feels like communion. You're not just eating, you're receiving. And for the first time, you understand that gratitude isn't about what you have, but how you receive what is already there. Hunger fades, but appreciation lingers. That every decision today feels weightier. What you say, where you go, how you look at someone. Each choice leaves a fingerprint on the soul of this day. You feel the responsibility not to waste them. Not out of fear, but out of reverence. Because what you do now echoes louder than you ever imagined. A stillness falls over you. Not the absence of noise, but the fullness of meaning. You realize you don't need to fill every moment. You only need to feel it. You sit, you breathe, you notice the warmth of sunlight on your arm, and suddenly, being is enough. Doing can. Wait, striving can rest. You are always enough. You remember the one person you never fully forgave yourself. For the mistakes, for the lost time, for the words spoken in anger and the ones never spoken at all. But now, looking into your own heart, you realize you are learning. You are surviving. And maybe, just maybe, you are doing the best you knew how. And that deserves grace. A child walks by. Their laugh pierces the air like music from a forgotten world. It doesn't ask permission. It just exists. Pure, undeniable. And it strikes you. You used to laugh like that too. Before the world told you to be serious, to be strong, to be silent. But now you wonder, what if laughter was part of healing? You think about a stranger you helped once, long ago. A moment you barely remembered, but maybe they never forgot. And it dawns on you, your impact is larger than your memory. You plant seeds you may never see grow, but that doesn't make them less real. It makes them sacred dot as night falls again. The stars begin to appear, quietly, faithfully, as they always do. You look up, not for answers, but for perspective. And what you find isn't a reason, but a reassurance. You are part of something bigger, not smaller than the stars equal to them, lit from within by the same spark. And that spark is still burning. In the stillness of that starry sky, something inside you shifts. The questions that used to haunt you, why me, why now, what if, begin to soften. They're replaced with a quieter kind of wondering. What can I give? Who can I bless? How can I leave more light than I found? The obsession with answers dissolves into the freedom of intention. You feel drawn to an old book, perhaps sacred, perhaps forgotten. You open to a page and find words you've read before, but today they break differently inside you. They don't just speak to your mind. They touch something deeper, as if they waited all this time for you to be ready to hear them. And now, you are dot. You step outside and witness the last light of day melting into the horizon. The sun doesn't resist its descent. It lets go with beauty. And that, too, becomes a lesson. You realize the most powerful moments aren't loud. They are surrender. Surrender not as defeat, but as trust. Trust that there is something beyond what you see. Your thoughts drift to the people you may never see again. You wonder if they knew how much they meant. If your eyes ever told the truth your mouth didn't say. And maybe, even now, you have time. Not to fix everything, but to release the weight. You don't need to carry guilt when grace is waiting. You pause and reflect on all the things you thought mattered. The goals, the titles, the rush to be someone. And now, none of that feels heavy. Not because it wasn't real, but because it was never the point. The point was love, always love. The kind that doesn't need grand gestures, just presence, just care. You close your eyes and imagine walking through a field you once loved. The wind is soft. The air tastes like memory. You hear your own heartbeat, as if it's the earth speaking back to you. And for the first time, you understand you don't belong to time. You belong to eternity. You always did. You whisper a prayer, even if you're not sure who's listening. Maybe it's not about being heard. Maybe it's about choosing to speak. To believe there's something or someone who hears the language of the soul, even when lips stay still. And in that whisper, you feel peace begin to form. You feel your chest rise and fall, over and over. The most faithful rhythm you've ever known. You thank it, silently, for keeping you here, for being the background music to your life unnoticed. Until now, every breath is a chance to return, to begin again. Even now, especially now, you think of the promises you once made to yourself, to others, to life. Some were broken. Some were buried. But maybe the promise wasn't the destination. Maybe it was the direction. And if today is your last, then let it be a promise kept to live awake, to live real, to live grateful. And before sleep finds you, you offer one more thought into the universe, not a question, not a demand, just a thank you. For this breath, for this day, for the chance to see clearly, even for a moment. And in that thank you, something opens. A door within. A light that doesn't fade. A beginning disguised as an end.